Welcome to my Flosstube. I'm Stacy, and this video is all about, well, mostly about cross stitch. The burning question today is, how far did I get on my Mirabilia? Stick around and find out. Before I answer that question, let's start with an FFO. Yes, I have one, just one, but one is better than none, right? And that is this adorable little patriotic stitch. So it is based off of a quilt block with some red stripes, and of course I've used a neutral background. I stitched this on 14 count Aida and then made it into a little pillow, which I stuffed with lizard glitter, also known as crushed walnut shells. And so it gives it a little bit of weight and body, more like a bean bag than a light, fluffy, fiber-filled pillow. And this is my June and July free pattern if you join my email list. So the link is in the description below, and you can get that stitch. If you're already on my cross stitch list, you should have already gotten an email that gave you the pattern. Now, this just so happens, well, not quite so coincidentally, but coordinate with my quilted table runner, which has the same star pattern. And if you are a quilter and are interested in this pattern, then you can join my quilt list to get that pattern for free. I also have a whole tutorial video right here on YouTube on how to construct the table runner. So now let's talk about starts, which is also going to be talking about finishes, because the things that I started in May, I finished mostly in May. You'll learn more in just a second. So one of the things that I stitched was a smaller version of my ornate Easter egg. And this one I did on, I believe it was 28 count mint, I think. And this is Weeks Dye Works Peony, which I love. It's beautiful. So I really like the scaled down version of this. And of course that coordinates with my large version of the egg, which I have made into a pillow. And you can see a tutorial about that. The patterns for both the larger and the smaller, which I'm going to put together into one pattern, will soon, I promise, be available on my Etsy shop. And I will put the link in the description below. And then when it becomes available, you can check it out. And if you join my cross stitch list, I will let you all know when that pattern becomes available. So not only did I stitch that and my little quilt block flag, but I also worked on a couple of other pieces that I can't quite show you yet, because those are also going to be future pattern releases and they're not finished quite yet. Okay, I'll give you a sneak peek of one of them. It's getting close to the FFO stage, but this is my Ladybug, which I'm going to make into something. Not a pillow though, not a pillow, because I've already put a fusible interfacing that has some structure to it on it. So hopefully by next Flosstube, I will have that finished and also the pattern up in my Etsy store. Now the whole reason that the pattern delay is happening is because I decided to join in on Miramay. And for those not familiar with Mirabilia patterns, they're by Nora Corbett, and they are fancy ladies, pretty ladies, and there's fairies and there's mermaids and all sorts of lovely, lovely detailed large pieces. And I decided that I was going to give it a try. Why? Well, I'm going to blame Stephanie and Allison of Cross Stitch the Globe, because if you haven't watched their floss tubes, they are so much fun to watch. They have great floss tubes where they're just talking about the things that they're working on, but they also have Flosstube University where they're showing you different things and giving you tips and tricks on how to use floss and the different kinds of floss and about the different kinds of fabrics that there are and how to make a needle minder. It's so much fun. And they are both into doing Mirabilias. Now, a lot of people who do Mirabilias in Mirabilia May tend to like start one a week or work on the many that they have going. I thought I would start with one, and I chose Andromeda. She's not the largest or most complicated of the ladies out there, but I really do like Greek and Roman mythology, so it worked out well with that. She was chained to a rock, whole thing with a fight with Poseidon, and I don't remember. Anyway, so I thought this was great. It only used DMC, a little bit of Krynic, and a bunch of beads. So I thought this is good. I didn't have to get a whole bunch of different fancy flosses. I did have about half of the DMCs already in my stash, so I just went ahead and got the rest of them. And I thought, oh, I'll get the beads when I'm closer to the end. So I started stitching. This is how the progress went. So as you can see, I finished it. The whole thing. Beads and all. Now, technically, I finished it last night at midnight, which was June 3rd, but, you know, not too bad. There were a few days in May that I didn't stitch, and actually the only day I stitched in June was yesterday. So I completed it all, I think, in 30 days. Obviously, it was the thing that I stitched on the most. It wasn't the only thing that I stitched on, because I did the little egg and the ladybug and the flag. I also made the quilt table runner, actually 2 of them. And did I make project? No, project bags I made back in April. We'll get to those in a moment. But I did spend, obviously, a lot of time stitching it. Probably a few hours each day that I stitched. I did enjoy it. I will keep my eye out for another one, and maybe next May I will do another one, but I'm not super anxious to start a new one right away. I am excited. I'm looking forward to making an FFO, although I am going to put it away for just a little while, give my mind a little break from Andromeda, and work on a bunch of other stitching, smaller projects, including all the whips that I had been working on before starting this that I didn't touch at all. So there's a handful of those. I'm going to make some progress, and by the next floss tube, hopefully 1 or 2 or maybe more of those will be finished, and maybe even an FFO. We'll see. So as I mentioned earlier, I got into doing a Mirabilia because of Stephanie and Allison at Cross Stitch the Globe, and I was watching their latest floss tube last night, actually, as I was beating the waves of Andromeda, and they were talking about the Sable Stitchers, who also have a floss tube, and you may or may not be familiar with them. And they were, in their latest floss tube, talking about the history of the Quaker Sampler. And I love stitch history. I am just fascinated by how everything came about and how it played such an important role in the lives of women and in recording history, because so much information was in the stitching. Genealogical information, geography, historical, local information for that area. I am just fascinated by it all, as well as fascinated by all the different types of stitches and things like that. So I recommend also checking out the Sable Stitchers, and I will also put some links to some history articles that I found from the Victoria and Albert Museum and from another source. Both of those links will be in the description below, that if you want some more information about the history of samplers, it's a good starting point. Now, another floss tuber who I've also started to watch recently is Nicola Parkman, and she has Hands Across the Sea. And she is doing a series right now on her Flosstube that is stitching a sampler, but not just with cross stitches, but also back stitches, running stitches. There's going to be more stitches coming out as it goes along. The pattern for that is free. Check out any of her recent YouTube Flosstube videos. I will put a link to her channel below. And you can get the pattern. And even if you don't have an interest in stitching the sampler, watch those videos. Her video on the cross stitch was fascinating. She gave you, I think, 3 or 4 different ways to start a project. And I have decided to try the pin stitch. I usually start with the loop method, but you can't always do that. So now I am trying to perfect my pin stitch, and that was great fun. She talked, of course, about how to do a cross stitch, which you might be thinking, yeah, that's easy peasy, lemon squeezy. But she also talked about reversible cross stitch. So that was fascinating, and the sequence of how you have to do the stitches in order to make the front and the back reversible. Fascinating, absolutely fascinating, as was her video on the running stitch, and then the latest one was on the back stitch. So I learned so much, so much. I haven't done any of the sampler. Not even sure I'm going to do the sampler, although I am going to try my hand at all these various variations of these different stitches. So I'm looking forward to the rest of that series. And I have another floss tuber who you might enjoy if you enjoy that historical sampler, beautiful antique stitch work, and that is Katie Strachan Embroidery. She calls her Flosstubes ornamentations, and they are fascinating. Her stitch work is impeccable. It is so gorgeous. And she has been doing several different samplers, both with cross stitch and with embroidery cross stitch combination type of things. And she is working on a piece that is totally reversible. The back is as gorgeous as the front, and the front is stunning. So a link to all of those floss tubers will be in the description below. Check them out if you have any interest at all in samplers and historical stitchery. Excellent, excellent sources. And since I saw you last, I have made myself 2 new project bags. So the first one is this project bag here with the sort of teal marbly fabric. It is quilted. It is soft and very flexible. It does have foam inside, and it has a side pocket in order to tuck in my floss. I otherwise have a loop where I can put a ring for my floss drops, but then I wanted to be able to tuck the floss away to keep it neat. On the other side, I have a large pocket here at the top. That's where I was keeping my fabric for my Mirabilia. And then a smaller pocket where I had things like scissors and other things like some extra threads. And then a little spot for needles, a nice piece of felt to park my needles. So now that my Mirabilia is done, I can take out my thread and clean that all out. And I really like that. It worked very well for the Mirabilia, but then I really wanted something that had a little bit more firm of structure. And so I made myself this one. And this one has a magnetic snap closure, which turned out okay. I need to play around with that a little bit more. And in this one, I did the pockets a little bit differently. I still did the long side pocket over here with a loop to put my floss drops. This project, I think, was for the Easter egg, and I was going to start with this floss, and then I changed to the peony. And then this, I did just one large side pocket. And I don't know, I think I kind of like the two pockets better, but it also has a little needle parking station down here, and I really do like that. So I do like the structure of this. It's still flexible, but it retains its structure better. So I'm still playing around with those. And then, of course, since both of those projects are done, it's time to clean out my other project bag. That would be this one. This was the first one that I made, which I really liked. And I was keeping everything in here. And then it was just way too much with the Mirabilia, which had a lot of thread and a large piece of fabric. So I'm going to break out the other projects that I have and distribute them across all these different bags. And I plan to make some more. So I'll keep you posted on the progress of that. And I'm having a really good time with doing that. Well, that wraps up today's Flosstube. I will hopefully soon come out with a tutorial on how to make the pillow. It's quick, it's easy. I did a split back to be able to stuff it. I really like the lizard glitter crushed walnut shells as a filling. I'm going to definitely be using that more. What I also like about it is, unlike when you get a huge bag of fiberfill and you go to stuff a small pillow like this, it seems like you use half of the fiberfill. So much fiberfill smushed down into a tiny little spot. Whereas with the lizard glitter, it barely looks like I even made a dent in the bag. So I'm liking that. So remember, there's lots of links and more information down in the description, and I look forward to talking to you all soon. Bye!